I'm Randy Gariss, and welcome to session number 7 in our series on chasing after emotional wholeness. As I went through the last session, we were talking about right thinking. Do you do top-down thinking or do you do bottom-up thinking? And that sequence at its core has to do with this idea that my emotions are going to be tied to my mind. In fact, that's why Romans 12 would say that we are transformed by the renewing of our mind. And I'm not sure that, as one of the guys here being very helpful made the statement, I don't know that we think enough about our thinking. That leads us, I think, into the last 2 sessions. This session, number 7 and number 8, need to go together. They're really tied, the first half and second half. And the best way I know how to maybe introduce it is just simply talk out of my own life for just a moment, and I apologize. But I was a young man in a complex situation, at least for me. The church was exploding in size and growing, and my family was increasing. And I looked up one day, and I wasn't sure if I was living my life or surviving my life. I felt like I was just flinging myself out the door and running in every direction. And I wasn't sure if that's how God designed a person to live. When I would be making hospital calls, I felt like I should be back at the office working on a sermon. If I was back at the office working on a sermon, I felt like I should be out at the church camp with the high school kids. If I was with the high school kids, I felt like I should be at the nursing home where someone perhaps was even passing away, and I should be there. I felt pressure every direction. I felt like and again, I don't know if it's true or not, I'm just giving you my perspective. I felt like I was a guy in the middle of an arena and a bowl, and all of the crowd, everybody had an opinion. Randy, you should be doing this or this or this or this. And I didn't even know what I thought. And somewhere along the line, I had to come to the place of Lord, I'm going to have to call time out and figure something in my own head. God, what do you hold me accountable for? Not with the voices in the crowd, and not even the weaknesses that I may come out of from my own bottom-up thinking. God, what do you hold me accountable for? That same set of processes just even entered this. What's a human life supposed to look like? I mean, I know what a duck does, and ducks in the water and migrates and all kinds of things, but what's a human being supposed to look like? And as I began to wrestle with those, another question, what's a life of wisdom? If I lived a life of wisdom and not a life of foolishness, what would it look like? I took probably a couple years. It was a relentless search for me. It became the kind of thing that I got in the scriptures and said, God, what would a life of wisdom, not one that's just reacting, but one that's actually living with intentionality and purpose, a life of wholeness, what would it look like? Well, I came up with what is my summary. And when I give it to you here in a minute, that summary began to be a pattern by which I breathe in and breathe out. I have loved ministry. I have loved my life. I would do it again in the blink of an eye. There's things I hope I'd do smarter, but I'd do it again in the blink of an eye. Because I found a rhythm for breathing in and breathing out, a way your lungs work, the same way a rhythm of life began to work. And from that, I think the Lord did much healing in my own emotions just from this rhythm of life. I want to give it to you. I'm going to give you the first part in this session. The second part will be in the second session. But this session is going to be built around the summary I came to. I came up with 10 things that make up a human life, 10 things that make up a life of wisdom. 10 things God will hold me accountable for. When I first say 10, it sounds cheesy. It sounds like some kind of late night talk show host thing. No, it just turned out to be 10. I wish it were 9 or 11. That might sound more authentic, but it was 10. And when you hear that, you tend to go, wow, 10 separate things that you're going to have to run up and... No, they're more symbiotic than that. In fact, they're so tied together that if you're actually failing at 1, I promise you're probably failing at 3. And I began to find a way to live these 10 things out. I wish I had a fancy name for them. I don't. It's just the life of wholeness. When I give the 10, I also need to remind you that all 10 are essential. What do you mean by that? Well, what you're going to be tempted to do is have a list where you go, well, number 2 is more important than number 9, or number 3 is more important than number 10. No, it's very hard to prioritize essential things. As a simple question, what do you need? What's more essential to you, oxygen or potassium? Well, without potassium, your brain won't work and your heart won't beat. And the answer is just yes. I mean, both are essential. These 10, because they're all essential, if I give them to you and you say, well, I'm doing pretty good, I'm doing 9 out of 10, I would say, no, because even the absence of one begins to taint and spoil the others. And so what is the life we were designed to live? I think it goes like this. Number 1, I have to have a heart of worship. A heart of worship where I share the day with the Lord. I don't know why I even write this, 'cause I'm sure you can't even read my writing, but truth is, I'm made in the image of God, and I was designed to be God's shadow my whole life. I'm not designed to get up in the morning and do devotions and check that off. I'm designed to have a heart of worship where I share the day with the Lord. The nature of the Christian life is an accompanied life. It's a partnered life. It's not a set of rules you live by a Christian lifestyle. Rules by a Christian lifestyle would be like a coat you put on or take off. I'm actually designed for an accompanied life. When I get up in the morning, my first sentence needs to be, and it's not every morning that it is, but it's most mornings, something like, good morning, Lord. You don't have to set one bush on fire today. I know you're here. I know you're here. And Lord, I want to share the day with you. There's nothing that I will do that I do alone as a Christ follower. John chapter 14, Hebrews, passage after passage would tell me, never will I abandon you. Never will I forsake you. I'll not leave you as orphans. I'll put my spirit in you. Truth is, we live in a company life. And so the first thing is this, I'm never going to flourish, and I'm never going to do top-down thinking from the previous session if I don't understand, number 1 is I'm in the presence of God. Being in the presence of God just impacts so many things. It just becomes a constant conversation all day long. I know this sounds a little trite, but if I were to join you, whoever you are as you're watching this, and I joined you at morning for the cornflakes that you had for breakfast. And then you ran to the bank, and I just jumped in the car and went to the bank with you. And you left from the bank, and you ran by one of the big box stores for lumber, and I got out and went with you. And from there, you went to that, and I went with you. And then you ended up sitting at lunch, and I just sat in the booth with you. It sounds a little like stalking here at the moment, but out of curiosity, what would be more strange or odd, talking to me or not talking to me? What's more dysfunctional, including me or not including me? And I began to realize I cannot live a dysfunctional life, a heart of worship where I share the day with the Lord. Here's the second thing that makes up our humanity. The second one, and I'm going to give you a list. I changed this list, by the way. I rewrote it every month, and I changed the order of it, except for number 1. Number 1 always stayed number 1. I changed the order of the 10 every month for years. I just rewrite it. Number 2, I have to have a handful of godly friends who know everything about me. I have to have a handful of godly friends who know everything about me. This broken world does not have relationships. We're designed for relationships. We did an entire session on that, and I'm not going to spend time here. But I will remind you that the idea of a lonely, faithful prophet off by himself just isn't biblical. It just doesn't really exist. Truth is, we live in community. If you're Moses, you have Joshua and Caleb and Aaron and Hur. If you're Daniel, there's a Shadrach and a Meshach and Abednego who are also part of the story. If you're Paul, it's Timothy and Titus, and you go through the list. If you're Jesus, you even ask, even struggling men like Peter, James, and John, the disciple whom Jesus loved, being John, you ask them deep in your life. I began to realize that every single day I'm working on that. You don't ever accomplish this, but you work on it. So every single day, somewhere when I'm driving across, I'm going to go check on a handful of godly friends who know anything about me. You invest in that. You don't declare those friendships. You cultivate those friendships. They're hard. This culture's hard at it, but it is essential. Number 3, I need to faithfully and joyfully, and I'm sure I'll go off the side, live out my role in my family. And if you can't see that, I'll say it again to you. I need to faithfully and joyfully live out my role in my family. You are born in a family, you'll die in a family. I don't care if you're 13 or 93, you have a role in your family, part of the very DNA which God made. And those families are broken, those families are quirky. No one lives in a family that's not quirky. That's just the nature of it. But part of my worship to God is I may not be able to do everything my family wants me to do. I may not be able to do everything that I'd like to do. I may not be able to do things in light of the circumstances of that family, but in the sight of God, am I faithfully and joyfully living out the role that I can live? I was in a complex situation, and it honestly was a complex situation. And there was enough marriage counseling and enough other things going on, but in the afternoon, I knew when to drive a stake in the ground. And I'll come back to that stake tomorrow, but I had a little girl. Somebody needs to sit beside her while she has the accompaniment of a father as she plays the scales on a piano. Somebody's got to teach a little boy how to step with his left foot and throw with his right hand. And I'm the dad, and nobody else can take that role. And so you drive a stake in the ground and you say, yeah, but there's so much. Yeah, I know. But my very act of worship, you're going to notice that every single thing of these are nothing more than me taking every part of life and bringing it under the lordship of Christ and as an act of worship. Faithfully about your role in your family. Number 4. Number 4 is I'm going to give you on the list here today, is to pick up the Talon Basin. And I'm just going to put T and B. Pick up the Talon Basin and advance the cause of Christ. What do I mean by that? We don't only do what Christ calls us to do, but we do it the way Christ asks us to do it. It's the means as much as the ends. And the towel in the basin is where Jesus took a towel and he took a basin of water and he washed his disciples' feet. And in washing the disciples' feet, he turned to them and said, what I've done, you do. Here's a reality. We're made to be the advance guard of heaven. We're made to be the representatives of Christ in every community. We're made to be that in our homes. We're made that to be in anywhere we are. And we're not only to advance the cause of Christ, but to do it with a genuine humility that looks after other people. The dog wasn't made for the chain in the backyard. The dog was made to hunt. The horse wasn't made for just to stand in the stable. It's made to run. And you were made to serve Christ. And so the process of living out the life I'm designed to live is this. Did I advance the cause of Christ somehow today? A little bit. With the Talon Basin, just serving people. That sequence of advancing the cause of Christ is the process of just worship. And so yes, you may be driving a bus for the school. And yes, you may be the custodian. And yes, you may be the CEO. And yes, you may be filling out the checks for everybody who's going to get them. But somewhere today, that I recognize the place I am in puts me in an incarnate ministry. Incarnate means in the flesh. Christ came in the flesh, and he's in the marketplaces, and he's in the houses of broken people. And he cares about people. And so when I begin to say, Christ, am I living the life you want me to live? I can't do all of these things to the degree I might like, but every single day did I move it forward, a heart of worship, handful of godly friends, faithfully, my role in my family, pick up the Talon Basin. Number 5, work hard. Sweat is spiritual. How you know that? I've read Proverbs. Proverbs says the fool struggles with diligence, and the wise man has a diligence. This is a admission I hate to give to whoever is watching this, but my whole life I thought I learned how to work hard, but I looked up one day and went, wait a second, I think I'm violating my own humanity. Here's why. In my line of work, and again, that's not everybody's, and I get that, but in my line of work, there were 20 or 30 things that were within the sphere of my work. I could go do hospital calls. I could go by the nursing home. I could go mentor and disciple somebody else within the congregation. I could go invest in staff. I could go to the church camp. I could do a number of things. And I found myself, one day I looked up and went, what in the world's happening? Because what I was doing is I needed to set myself in my chair and stay in the chair till that thing that I needed to do got done. But instead, I was jumping up out of the chair, going finding something else that I would rather do. And I realized that I was playing a little bit of a shell game with myself. And I had to make sure that I came to this point of, Christ, I love you enough. And you have enough claims on my life. I want to work hard. And if I didn't work hard somewhere today, if I didn't have some sense of diligence, I'm actually running from you, I'm running from me, I'm running from the very people I love. And so there's some in this room that I would say to you, is it possible that you're violating your own humanity because somewhere along the line you thought that real life was somehow avoiding hard work? I don't care who you are. Retired, or maybe you're somebody pre-employment, but your humanity is God works, and we're designed to work. It's an acquired taste. You have to do it long enough to learn to like it. But part of my act of worship is just this. There's 5 more I'm going to go through in the next session. As you're hearing these, I know you have to be thinking, Randy, you're just giving me a to-do list. No, hang on. The best way, I'm going to give you these 10, and we'll put them all together, but the best way I know to describe them is 10 little ducklings. 10 little ducklings that you just nurture along every day. And some days you can't. Some days the pipes will break, the ox will be in the ditch, and you can't do everything. But these 10 little ducklings, when you look up and go, wow, some of these things I've not been working at intentionally for several days, it's not something you're leaving behind, it's you're leaving behind. And the you who's here is more of a caricature. You know what a caricature is. You've been to the county fair. You've been to somewhere where the artist has been drawing, somewhere at the square, at the plaza. And when they look at somebody and draw a caricature, they exaggerate features. And so the nose or the ears or the hair or the chin becomes exaggerated. If these 10 are not a part of your life, I guarantee you, you're living a caricature life. It's not the life you were designed to live. And what will happen is you'll have all of the emotions that begin to rebel against it. And you'll go, why do I feel like I feel? Why am I not flourishing? And the answer is you're living too much of a shallow life. These 10 little ducklings are just part of getting up in the morning and worshiping, saying, these are the 10 things I want to advance best I can today. And at the end of the day, if you want to go to bed with some sense of, yeah, I had failure today on things, but I'm actually pretty content, is because I know who I am. One other way to say the same thing. You need a map to navigate a complex world, and you don't need other people giving you that map, so to speak. You're going to have to decide in your own mind, this is who I am, and this is the life I live. As I played with it, I want to have a heart of worship that shares the day. I want to invest in a handful of godly friends. I'm going to faithfully, my family, pick up the cause of Christ and advance it where it's not, and I want to work hard. We'll pick up the next 5, and we'll see if we can't tie this whole series together in the next session. God bless.